Pipe Network presents.
On this episode of Season 4, Let's Talk.
It's kind of cool if you think of it now, but during that time I was so nervous. I was so young to take on that responsibility. I don't really know how to handle it. I don't really know how I would react to it. It was the first time that I saw someone got stabbed, you know. And I think that's part of life. It makes us stronger, it makes us wiser. And from those mistakes, we realize that we need more training, we realize that we need to improve ourselves. And that's what we did. We learned from the situation.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and I'm your host Rajiv Doreswamy. And this show aims to help reach out to those who are currently struggling in life and to remind you that life is indeed beautiful when you're inspired to make it your own. Before we get into this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to whichever platform you are using. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at The Rajiv Show. Hey folks, welcome back to The Rajiv Show. And wow, this is going to be a special episode. This is, I think, my second conversation with a fellow Ibaloy. And hopefully we're going to have a little bit more of cultural awakening with the Ibaloy culture in this conversation. One thing is, my guest today is a legend here in La Trinidad. And hopefully we're gonna grab a beer after this whole pandemic is done. Folks, let me introduce my guest, Nic Satur Jr. Hey pal, how you doing?
Hey, doing great, brother.
So before we get into this entire conversation about culture and everything else in between, could you give a little bit of background about yourself to my listeners?
Okay. At present, I am a motivational speaker, a trainer. I am an academician, a marketing enthusiast. Basically, I am a revenue optimizer consultant. So I help businesses increase their revenue or optimize their revenue when it comes to customer engagements, when it comes to creating their strategies, public relations, and content creation strategies. That's what I do right now. But prior to that, I was an event organizer for so long. So in La Trinidad, Benguet, I started doing events since 2002 until 2015. You know, so that's who I am, brother.
2015, ironic. That was the year I came back. That's really
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah. During that time, I was handling Battle of the Bands, the biggest events here in Baguio and La Trinidad.
Hmm.
I've handled the first Woodstock in the Philippines.
Hmm.
So I was jamming with Pepe Smith, all the rock stars.
Uy,
During
interesting.
Panagbenga, we're always out. We're always with the bands, with
Oh.
Bombo Radio, and with the event organizers as well. So before going professional,
Hmm.
during my college days, that's what I do. Aside from having my own bar in the restaurant, which is Quattro Bar,
Hmm.
located in Kilometer 4, you know, we were also conducting events. We were creating concerts, we were creating Battle of the Bands, and those were the rock and roll moments of our lives.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. That's fascinating. Band music, you already got me. We got some stuff to unravel there.
Yes, brother.
But before we, of course, unravel into all the stuff all these juicy conversations about business and event and music. Let's take a time travel experiment, and then let's go back into the past. If you and I were classmates in high school, who were you in high school? Are you the energetic type, the competitive, and uh, uh, how would you classify yourself, as silent type? Are you with the chicks, or off alone, with guitar at hand, or any of that stuff?
Yeah. Well, when I was in high school, I grew up in St. Louis Boys High. So
Hmm.
basically, we were all boys. The first girlfriend I had when I was in college already. So during high school, we were we were the friendly type
Hmm.
of guys, but we were also kind of the black sheep of the classroom.
Hmm.
We were the funny guys, the teacher's enemy, we could say.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we were also the ones stopping our classes. Maybe not all classes, uh, not in mathematics, but in other subjects. I
Yeah.
could say that we were the guys who were the best in a lot of things,
Yeah.
even in stupid stuff as well as in funny stuff.
Yeah.
And we were the friendly guys. If you and I were um, classmates in high school,
Hmm.
we would definitely be friends.
Hmm.
That was who I was in high school.
Interesting. I like how uh, com- uh, you guys were the troublemakers, but still, it's kind of weird combination. Troublemakers, but still, you guys are the best of the best, huh? That's the weirdest
Yeah,
combination I've ever sing. I've I've ever heard. It's rare. It's like a rare
exactly.
Pokemon or something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You know, it's funny. There was a time that we took the exam.
Hmm.
We took the exam, yet we were drunk. I think I
Oh,
was in third year high school. We were
huh,
we we drank prior to in our lunch break,
huh.
and we took the exam by around 1 p.m. and we finished our exams
What
prior
was
to the
the thing?
time, and yet we passed the exams. You know, and
Wow.
that our classmates were actually bewildered. How did we do that? How did we pull that off?
I mean,
You know, a lot of things we do in high
is
school.
that like grade A, like the top class, or is just like the passing mark thing,
Oh, no, no, no.
grades?
It's just the passing mark
Ah,
thing.
okay.
I am not part of the science section or what, but we were the students who had fun, but at the same time we don't flunk any subjects.
Uh, it's just
It's
curbing
kind
that.
of balance of everything.
So you guys were just curbing the mark just to get across. That's interesting.
Yeah, but we have a high marks. No, surprisingly.
Yeah. You mentioned college event organization. How did that start? I mean, take me back to the story. How did you get into event organizing? I'm actually curious to sing, because I I I s- I think I also did my fair share of event organization, and I noticed it's one of the stressful things, especially alongside college. That's like the worst thing. Could you take me back to that story? What happened there? How did you get involved there?
Well, I remember the first time that a classmate of mine approached me. He was a DJ in a radio station,
Hmm.
and they were creating this first Battle of the Bands Bulaklak Rock competition,
Hmm.
you know. And during that time, I was very active as a student leader
Hmm.
in our organization of marketing. And he asked me if have I ever handled concerts or events. And during that time, I never have any experience. I only have experience creating events in school, like the quiz bee for the organization,
Hmm.
a seminar for a class or our batch, and that's it. Then suddenly he asked me if I could handle Battle of the Bands, and I said I never had any experience, but if you'll gonna give me the opportunity to work with you on that, I think I can pull it off.
Hmm.
And it started from there. I told my cousins. My cousins were very supportive of me. They were part of my team,
Hmm.
and we held the first Bulaklak Rock, a Battle of the Bands competition. We were part of the team who organized it. I was not the main organizer, but that's where I got hooked with event organizing. No, that's where I love the crowd. I love the passion. I love the noise.
Hmm.
The thrill. No, and yeah, and from there on, I had event and continuous events until 2015.
Wow. Must have been fun. What was
It was fun. You know.
I'm sure with all the excitement and all the saying, I'm sure you had your fair share of crazy moments, especially handling bands. You know, what is the worst experience that you've had? We started off good, now we're taking into in the
Ah,
negatives.
okay. Well, even until now, I remember it so clearly.
Yeah.
There was one event.
Hmm.
It's actually an Oktoberfest concert
Hmm.
with known artists, and there was a crowd riot, and
Oh,
someone got stabbed. Which
ouch.
during that time, I was way back, way far from the scene,
Hmm.
and I only have my people to handle it, and apparently they haven't handled it well.
Hmm.
And yeah, someone gets stabbed because security is one of my main accountability.
Hmm.
You know, so that time, of course, all the blame went to me, and as the leader of the group, I need to take accountability and responsibility for that.
Hmm.
And yeah, even until this day, it still haunts me. And even until this day, we still talk about it,
Hmm.
you know. And well, that's normal in events. It happens.
Hmm.
We can't really have it perfectly, but we can just do so much. We can just do our best. You know. What's ironic is they were there were policemen and guards around,
Hmm.
yet they haven't mitigated the situation.
Whoa.
No, they haven't prevented the situation.
Hmm.
No, but as I've mentioned, with how rock and roll concerts could be so crazy, you know.
Yeah. Especially the punk scenes.
And I think that
Punk and
was the
metal.
first time. Yeah, I think exactly. It was rock and roll, hardcore metal stuff,
Ah.
you know. And that was I think that was the reason why Oktoberfest was banned during the first time here in Baguio.
But how was the settings like? What was the setting there like? Was it open air or was it in
It
Burnham?
was an open ground. Yes, it was in Athletic Bowl.
Ah. Oh wow,
You know,
that's an event. A man
it
can
was a
only make
huge
it.
crowd.
A man who is actually who's an actual musician would have made it if they'd actually performed in the Athletic Bowl. But man, wow.
Exactly, brother.
And that's
But
that's
yeah,
what that's facing towards the bleachers, right? That's where the thing is, right?
yeah, it is.
Wow.
And
It's pretty
we
cool. Pretty cool, pretty
kind of
cool.
cool if you think of it now. But
Yeah.
during that time, I was so nervous. I was so young
Huh.
to take on that responsibility.
Huh.
I don't really know how to handle it. I don't really know how I would react to it. It
Huh.
was the first time that I saw someone got stabbed,
Oh
you know.
man.
And I think that's part of life.
Yeah.
It makes us stronger, it makes us wiser. And from those mistakes, we realize that we need more training, we realize that we need to improve ourselves.
Hmm.
And that's what we did. We learned from the situation.
I like it. I like how you transition this to motivation all of a sudden. I was hoping to actually put motivation in the last, but since you built it up to the motivation, um, I gotta ask because for me, I've always wanted to get into motivational stuff, inspirational stuff, and I think
Uh-huh.
you and I have a mutual friend, the legendary Bryken Daya, which I had a conversation. I had a pleasure
Oh
having a
yeah,
conversation with, and that's how I know you actually is through
yeah.
Bryken Daya. Is that I've always wanted to get into the motivational stuff. It's just that uh, I don't know where to start. What's the best way to start? I know it's a weird question to ask when it comes to motivation, inspiration. Being a public speaker. Where
Uh-huh.
do you start, basically?
Honestly speaking, if I could be honest to you,
Hmm.
I start with pain. The reason I became a motivational speaker is because I had a lot of pain. I experienced a lot in life. You know,
Hmm.
I attempted suicide thrice. I was depressed,
Hmm.
not only once, not only twice, but I got depressed thrice.
Hmm.
You know, and this is where I get my motivation. I cannot motivate others if I haven't gone through it. You know, and I think, yeah, you start with your core. Motivation starts always with your core. And I do believe that you need to motivate yourself in order to motivate others. You can't fake it till you make it.
Hmm.
You need to go through it. You need to undergo it. You need to experience it.
Hmm.
You know, likewise in business, it's the same. You can always learn from our mentors, but it's still totally different if you've experienced it by yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah. So sometimes as a motivational speaker, they just look at the bright side. They just look at who you are right now.
Hmm.
No. But they haven't seen who you were back then
Hmm.
and what you did to get there. You know, there were times that I wanted to quit.
Hmm.
You know, and it was hard. The journey was not easy, and that's where you get motivation. That's where you get to inspire others by telling them your story. That's where you that's where you get words to say to people.
Hmm.
You know, if you can just only see me, brother, I have tattoos all over my body.
Hmm.
I tattooed my whole life in my body. It depicts the picture of what happened to me in the past,
Hmm.
what happened to my family. You know, all those difficulty, you know, became became an opportunity. Those adversity was my university, and that's where I get motivation and inspiration, and that's where I get stories to tell people because especially kids right now, the gap between the seniors, millennials,
Hmm.
you know, the generation Y. I think it's best to share these stories, share our story, because sometimes we just don't know the impact that we could create to people's lives
Hmm.
just by telling them your story and how you actually gone through those difficulty.
Hmm.
No?
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and
very
as I've
powerful.
mentioned, yes,
Yeah.
Ver, and I'm always telling the youth,
Hmm.
that don't let yesterday take up too much of today. I have done a lot of mistakes in the past,
Hmm.
and if I would actually dwell on those mistakes, I can never move on. So I always tell them, don't let yesterday take up too much of today. You know, yeah, and we learn from our failure. We seldom do we learn from our success.
Hmm.
No. You remember during we had those exams in high school and in college.
Hmm.
that whenever there's one thing you haven't answered,
Yeah.
then you finish your exam, you submitted your exam, you go out and open your notes, and you find the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Remember that? You know? And that's how we learn. You don't learn from your success, you learn from the failures.
Yeah.
You know. So unfortunately, like for us, there are times that it took us time in order for us to learn. You know? Yeah, because of social media, because of what we always take into consideration what other people thinks,
Mm.
what the society will say. You
Yeah.
know, this kinds of this kinds of mindset actually brings us down, and instead of bringing us to higher ground, it actually pulls us down to failure. So there you go. These are the things that we could share for leadership talks, motivational speeches. That's where I actually get my contents. Hope that was helpful, brother.
Yeah, it was very deep introspective because I'm looking back at saying I know this the stuff that I've shared in the past, you know, it kind of makes sense. I'm sure I've mentioned this countless times already that my story. I think I shared the same. It was just that I think my outlook and the outcome of how things were is in my life was much more different, and every day is always a struggle. It's always a constant struggle, and I kind
Uh
of
huh.
the
Yeah.
funny thing about me is that you know I kind of embrace the negativity as its own entity in my life, and throughout my life, yeah, it's throughout my life during the entire span of things. None of it, looking back at it, none of it really was worth any of those memories that I really wish I would have enjoyed, that I envy from a lot of people. Um, One thing I've always I don't think I have shared this with anyone is that I always I've always wanted to have certain things in high school that same thing in college. Actually, it's ironic. Prior to this conversation, it was 2020, and also in my high school, uh, that the graduation. In India, I actually, when I was in high school in India, you
Uh huh.
know, my sister and of course my batch, and they the one thing that I really enjoy watching is, there's something about graduation. It's something about letting go of it in that moment, living in that moment. And it's it the funny part about that, it kind of haunted me as I continue in the story, is that I have actually missed out when I failed my 8th grade or 8th standard. uh, I never had the opportunity to get that, that ending, like that final overture for at least my high school, which I kind of wish I
Yeah.
really wanted. And when I went to college, and then music, and I had to go through the stuff. Um, I'd expected, at least I'd demand retribution from what I didn't get from high school. The irony of it is that I don't really take it as bad blood, but yeah, I kind of
Uh
missed the
huh.
opportunity of having, that opportunity, to share that moment with my parents, and have that moment. It's kind of strange because when I graduated, it was in the middle of the pandemic, so it was kind of like the history repeated itself, kind of thing. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
depressing.
Yeah.
It was really sad and depressing. I haven't shared this with anyone. I actually haven't shared this moment with anyone. It's just that, up to that point, I realized that I think I'm bound for negative things that's most likely going to happen. And thinking positive is kind of the uh I, I don't know. There's something about thinking positive that I don't know how I don't know how I'm communicating it, but there's something about it that doesn't make me work well with it or something. I don't know if I actually got the message through. It's very deeply
Yeah,
philosophical.
I understand you. Exactly. I feel you, brother. I understand you. During this pandemic, the irony is I was a motivational speaker, but during this pandemic, I got depressed.
Hmm.
You know, I got so depressed because everything was everything was going wrong.
Uh,
There was no job, no trainings. Our business was closed.
hmm.
There was no delivery here for Luzon. We have a business wherein we are the distributor of one of the uh, food meat
Hmm.
products here in Baguio and Benguet.
Hmm.
No? So during that time, we have no income. There were no trainings. As in, brother, there was no money coming in, and every day we're spending every day. The pandemic created a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety in us. And then suddenly I lost my 5 year relationship, and it hurts. You know? And if you say that, hey, you just need to think positive, this is
Yeah.
always the battle cry of a lot of people.
Yeah.
That in those negativity, you just need to think positive. But sorry to curse, but I think it's bullshit. You know,
Yeah. It's
you
true.
can't really think positive when you're already so down.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
That's true.
but
It's
you know what? For me,
mm,
I believe, bro, that whenever you're down, you won't go anywhere just up. So
hmm. Yeah, I do
after
agree.
being so down, it actually created a moment for me to
Hmm.
reflect on things, recalibrate my goals, repurposing, and to actually create new goals. And during that time, I think that was around August.
Hmm.
During that time, now I was so down, I was so depressed.
Hmm.
My anxiety was so strong that my body chills and shivers,
Hmm.
you know. So I need to take my mind off of those things. I need to find something to do in order for me to cope up with that because I need to snap out of it.
Hmm.
People are depending on me. I have my cousins, I have my daughter depending on me. So I can't really give up, you know. And that's what's hard. Wherein we may experience a lot of um failures. We might feel defeated, knocked down,
Hmm.
you know. But as they say, failure builds character,
Hmm.
you know. We must not let it stop us. And during that time, um, I haven't also shared this to anybody. It's kind of embarrassing to share it, but
Hmm.
here we go. I'm with Rajiv. Um, I was so depressed with my love life, with the business, with everything that's happening to me, and what I did is I enrolled in law school.
Hmm.
You know, I need to take my mind off of these things. So
Hmm.
what I did is to enroll in something I know would be very challenging for me.
Hmm.
I know that would get my focus out of that negativity. You know? And yeah, we just finished our first semester in
Hmm.
law school, and you know it was crazy, crazy, crazy to enroll. It was difficult, it was fun, it was exciting, it was scary. At the same time, I was depressed.
Huh.
And I'm getting more depressed when I enrolled law school because the subject was so hard. There's so much to read.
Yeah.
You know,
Wait,
it's
what's
so
this?
hard.
Like
Yeah,
bachelor's or doctorate? What's this? Master's, doctorate? What's this? Course.
law school, brother. Law school,
Which degree?
College of Law. It is a doctorate degree.
Wow. Oh, that's the highest of highest.
Yes, the highest of highest. I enrolled in the University of the Cordilleras,
Hmm.
and you know, I was so depressed, and I said, "Well, let me enroll into this difficult course in order for me not to be depressed."
Hmm.
And then I got more depressed because we only have like 2 to 3 hours sleep because we need to read a lot of cases.
Huh.
There was this one subject wherein we had like around 120 cases to read
Huh.
and digest. You know, it was so depressing because you feel that 24 hours is not enough.
Yeah.
But then you learn to adapt to the situation. You learn to create strategies in order for you to read those cases, do those assignments, despite of having a job,
Hmm.
despite of doing your work from home, despite of what you're feeling, despite of those emotions, you know. And as I've mentioned, failure builds character. It pushes you to become better, and it pulls you towards your vision. You know. Before me enrolling into law school, as
Hmm.
I've mentioned a while back, the pandemic has provided fear,
Hmm.
anxiety, and depression.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it has also created opportunity for repurposing, opportunity to
Yeah.
have your
Hmm.
me time
Hmm.
or your alone moment, and for you to realize what is the meaning of life, what is the meaning of success. And then suddenly, this was the time where I created new goals, I created a new purpose,
Hmm.
you know, and it totally changed me. It totally changed my life. I suddenly decided to get fit.
Hmm.
I weigh like around 120 kilograms um, last March.
Hmm.
And right now, I weigh around 87 kilos, you know, because that's part of my goal already, to
Wow.
become healthy, you
Amazing.
know, to
Amazing.
become wealthy, to become healthy. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's what the pandemic creates. That's how depression is both, you know, negativity at the same time opportunity. It just depends on how we deal with it, how we cope with it. We have different coping mechanisms.
Hmm.
But definitely, brother, what I can tell you is that we always need help, you know. Yeah. And we cope with things differently. And you can't just say that, hey, think positive. Oh, come on,
Yeah.
man. Really? How can you? You
Yeah.
know? You, yeah.
It,
You, exactly, bro.
it
You can't
since
really expect. Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, this
Go
is a
ahead.
very this is actually never expected this to be my second most emotional or third. I don't really count anymore how many emotional conversations I've had, but this one's also gotten me to tears. So yeah, one thing that I wanted to share is that I don't know, I know this is irrelevant, but since you used the word reflection, this is the time of reflection, reassessing, and figuring out what is life.
Yeah.
I this one thing strange about me. I know all of us are built differently, but the fact that we have brains, we have everything similar. It's just that um I just want to lighten this up a bit, but yeah, it's funny when it came to learning and reflecting most of the things. One thing that I really enjoyed doing, I don't know if I've shared this before, is that when the pandemic, before the pandemic happened, you know, I used to sit with my mentor after class, and then it's strange enough, uh, relevant stuff that I study in college, even if I put the effort, even if I put in the fuel and everything, it's funny that
Uh-huh.
once that
Yeah.
semester is done, I kind of, it's kind of like a delay response. And this happens due to my ability to reflect. And earlier on, I used to walk from Baguio to La Trini. I've done it more than 20 times, I think. So yeah, it's like
Wow.
coming back. Actually, I haven't done going from La Trinidad to Baguio, and coming back is much more easier because you're walking down a hill. It's like walking down a downwards hill. Going upwards is much more of a pain in the ass. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
during those times, there were many things that I've learned, reflected upon, and there were even times that there's this one particular moment that I remember, which is ironic enough. It's connected to what you said. Every bad memory becomes some sort of experience that is worth sharing. And here I want to share this one with you. Is that we had a play, and
Uh-huh.
they have the big ass buildings and everything. So
Yeah.
during our play, the location of our building was somewhere in heaven, somewhere one apartment in heaven, because that was so high. Uh, and I remember this specifically because this was one of the most um, interesting moments of my life, because uh, this would have been, had not been for that one particular shop nearby, saying I would have died on the street, because during the play, of course, all our classes were canceled during that day and everything.
Uh-huh.
And then we went into the play, and then, like I said, the building was in heaven, and all the class. We had like two shows, because saying it was good, it was successful, and it was funny. The person that directed it was also yeah, it was a guest in my show. So
Uh-huh.
we had like it was exhausting. And then I think I remember at that time, the props that I carried, because we had to set it up on the day. I think we had to set it up on the day before, or set it, and then I think, uh, of course, the weight that doubles up in a bag. When I,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
I think someone requested it, because it was part of the props, part of the backdrop, and all that stuff. They were looking for something that would replace a wall, because the scene of the area was bedroom scene, and it was a bedroom
Uh-huh.
of a character. So there was no blanket. So I said, okay, I'll just get my blanket. It was funny. I thought it was gonna be light, but then I realized it doubled up the weight, because granted, after that, I think I had my suit and everything. I had a lot of things, and it doubled up in my bag, and it was like I was carrying Mount Everest in my back. And
Uh-huh.
that's not the worst part of it all. Was after we finished up our play, there was I realized this now, that I do enjoy it, though, that I had like it was an MWF schedule. So I had a class somewhere from 7 to 8. And it was ironic. We finished, we wrapped up around 6:30ish or something, and then we had to come back from heaven to earth. And then the classroom was, another floor up. So it was really exhausting going back. I was dead when I got into class. I don't even remember
Uh-huh.
what I learned during that time. And the worst part of it is that I think uh, this was the time when cabs started charging more, and I think there was a story where the cabs started charging so much more on the fees and something. So
Uh-huh.
from
Yes, yes.
wherever you started from Baguio, it's doubled what it is when you used to pay. And at that time, I
Yeah.
said I was not taking a risk because I'm from La Trinidad, so I had to look for a specific jeep that would take. Unfortunately, all public transportations were beaten out, and I think at that time, 8 p.m. I think the jeep that was leading towards my home was already gone. So there was no backup, no contingency, no nothing. So there I am in my character suit with blanket in the back and I think some backup clothes and I don't remember what else I was packing. Exhausted, tired, drained. You know, I was I was fuel dead. The moment I came back from UB, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there's that hill that goes down, and then from there, I
Exactly.
was walking straight into Session Road. I had no choice because I had no transportation. I couldn't afford a cab at that time. I think I was saying, and mom was already at home. I think at that time because during that time also one more thing to add on during that time was Pinagbenga was on. So imagine the traffic
Oh, yeah.
thing. It,
Imagine the people,
yeah,
traffic,
it was funny.
congestion. Yeah.
Speaking about mom, is that I invited her, but she completely forgot about it. And then when I was looking from the place where we were, the thing, especially from SLU to the thing, that was really compact. Like there were taxis, cabs, everything was saying during the evenings or afternoons. It was so jam packed that everyone's honking at each other. So she couldn't make it, and yeah, I had no choice. Continuing into the story, I had no choice, but I had to walk. And somewhere mid between Hotel Supreme, I think that is like the central point from heading entering into La Trinidad. You know,
Yeah.
I was really so exhausted that I needed fuel, so I needed to find something to eat, something to munch, and I think I had like $50 or $20 in my pocket. So there was this shop that was near this Pandesal area, griller somewhere near the air. I'm sure you know this. For those La Trinidad folks who are tuning in, I'm sure you also know these place. Grillers back. There was that barbecue place somewhere nearby that area. There's an entry which had that Pandesal and then some driver's license, driver's thing school somewhere there. I don't know if you
Uh huh.
remember that place. So there's a shop nearby,
Yeah.
and I picked up some chips. I was so exhausted. I thought I would pass out because the bag was already starting to get into my thing, and I don't know if I was wearing a shoulder bag or I was wearing the high school bag, but yeah, it was heavy. And I managed to stick it out till I reached home, and wow, that was one hell of an experience. Reflecting on that moment, I never thought I'd actually go home. That and countless other
Yeah.
drinking moments that I never expect I'd go home. That was like the worst of worst, to be honest. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yes. I'm sure during that time there were also fears. There were fear inside you. You were afraid on some point that you don't know
um,
what would happen because you were so exhausted.
at
You know.
at that point, since I've been doing it already, like I'm already used to walking. Especially you mentioned working out. There were also times that I used to do legs, and then when the legs after the legs workout with the
Oh,
squats
okay.
and all that
Yeah.
stuff. There were many times that I still managed to think, and there was no pain. It's funny, there was no pain. The worst part of this was I've been doing that for almost a
You got.
longer time, so I kind of got used to it. It
Uh
was
huh.
just that it was my mind that was competing against my body to make sure that I would have
Yes.
finished, going home. That was the set goal. And yeah, I think yeah, that was very shocking to me personally. I don't even remember what happened after. I was so exhausted. But that was like the beginning of the first experience that I've had, because prior to all of the experiences of walking back home, especially when
Oh
the
yeah.
public transportation is full and all that stuff, nothing can compare that experience to that experience, because yeah, that was the time when I was I really I had no choice. It was not saying it wasn't really something that I wanted to. and plus that I was also broke. So yeah, and it was fun actually. Speaking of all the experiences that I had walking, I mean, coming back to that main point of reflection, life, introspection, I kind of I kind of miss that because that's the essence of me thinking and me, feeling the breeze. Now with this whole pandemic where you have to look like Darth Vader and
Pandemic.
yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
a major cosplay event where everybody looks like Darth Vader, and especially when you haven't brushed your teeth. You're killing yourself from the
Yeah.
inside. you know it's yeah, it's weird, but yeah, that's the life.
Yeah. Irony that this year is the year of the rat.
I
Yeah.
heard, yeah, I
And
heard.
it this year is the year of the rat, and we live like rats.
The
We are
irony of that.
scared to go out.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hide in our homes. We are scared of people.
Hmm.
We literally we live like rats in the year of the rat. It's an irony, but it's how it is. We can never foretell what the virus will be in like 2 3 years from now. Even with the vaccine coming out, there's
Hmm.
a lot of things that is still uncertain. you know
Yeah.
so what can we do but to adapt? This is life.
Yeah.
you know
I love that song by Sing.
so
That's actually a song. This is Life by oh no, That's Life by James Brown did a cover of
that's
that
life.
song. That's
Yes,
amazing.
yes.
I think the original was Frank Sinatra. It's an amazing song. It's
Frank
funny. I
Sinatra,
listen to
yeah.
that song. I kind of listen to that song from time to time, and yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, this first half of this conversation has really been emotional, folks. We're gonna
Yes,
have
yes, it is.
a short break, and we'll come back. We're gonna talk about culture, as mentioned in the opening. We're gonna talk about culture and business, and yeah, folks, we'll be right back after these few short messages.
All right, see ya.
If you want to learn something new or useless about the world around you, why don't you try listening to the Banyu Podcast Reflushed on Spotify, Anchor, or any podcast app that you use?
Hey, folks, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and yeah, my guest again is Nic Satur, and our first half has been emotional. It's more like a one-on-one kind of thing. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. It's really amazing, amazing. So as mentioned in the introduction, uh, Nic Satur, my guest, and I are from the Ibaloy culture, and we wanna. During the break, we were actually talking about this. We were talking about tribes and stuff. Of course, the Ibaloy culture and Igorot culture is one of the most famous now because of how we are portrayed, and some of the history is actually dying out, and in our latest generation, since we are transitioning into the Western world, some of it is dying out, especially the old cultures like Pinikpikan. Pinikpikan is still a thing for a local Igorot
Yeah.
household, but now it's not pinikpikan, it's already fried chicken is starting to phase out. It's slowly starting to phase out, and yeah,
Exactly.
for the originals, the OGs who started it out, I mean, the Igorot culture, the origins, I think, for us is we we do not know really where we migrated from. Some would say we come from the Chinese tribe, some would say we come from the Indian tribes, earlier settlers. what what I know of from my perspective, of course Nick will give him his own perspective, is that we uh we lived in the mountains. So the traditions, the offerings, especially one of our famous celebration is of course the kanyao. That is one of the thing that we live by, and yeah, kanyao, pinikpikan. That's the only thing that I remember off of my culture because I haven't even had the chance. What are the other stuff that I missed out, by the way, pal?
uh, Well, first and foremost, brother, the term Igorot
Mm,
came from the Spanish word igolotes. Golotes, which means that we are from the mountains. The term E in all of the Philippines, E is pertaining to a certain place or a certain what do you call a certain thing. Like E Baloy
mm,
means that Baloy means a house.
mm,
So it means people who live in houses. E Baloy.
mm,
E Locos means flat land.
mm,
So these are the people who live in flat land. E Sagada are the people who live in Sagada. You know. So
mm,
E, no, E is pertaining to from. So when you say E Baloy, these are the people from Baloy. When you say
mm,
Igorots, these are the people from the mountains. But apparently here in the Cordilleras, when you say Igorot, we have a lot of tribes.
mm.
There are a lot of tribes.
Yeah.
No, pertaining to Igorots, it's just not one tribe alone. We
Uh,
have the Kankanais, we have the Ibaloys, we have a lot of tribes being an
mm,
Igorot.
mm,
And Ibaloy is one of the oldest tribes, Ibaloy, or
mm,
sometimes they also call them Nabaloy,
mm,
Inibaloy, you
mm,
know, and we're scattered all over Luzon. We have Ibaloys in Cabayan, in the Cordilleras. We have Ibaloys in Vizcaya,
mm,
you know. We have Ibaloys in Pangasinan.
mm,
So, like what you said, we never really knew where we came from. But as of my grandfather, the stories is that we are already settlers here.
mm,
We are already the natives here. There was, I do agree with you, brother, that there were a lot of culture that was
mm,
already extinct.
mm,
We were the first. Ibaloys were the first to actually practice mummification, which
mm,
right now we don't practice it anymore
mm,
because a lot of Ibaloys are already Christians. A lot of Ibaloys have already converted.
mm,
Back then, we were pagans, and being a pagan is also the main reason why the Cordillera was not. How do we put this? We were we were one of the strongest point of the
mm,
Philippines,
mm,
and that's the reason that even um, the great generals, their escape plan is to actually run towards the Cordilleras. No, because here in the Cordilleras, we were not occupied by the Spanish, by the Japanese, because we were always fighting.
mm,
And when the ethnic groups of the Igorots united, they were not defeated by
mm,
anybody. The only time that the Americans penetrated the Cordilleras
mm,
was when they already created hospitals, churches,
mm,
roads. You know, they introduce education. The first teacher in the Cordilleras was a soldier. So this
mm,
is how they actually colonize the Igorots, through introducing change. But
mm,
back then, during the time of the Spaniards, time of the Japanese, time of, you know, during those times, the Igorots were not conquered. And that was the reason that even during that time, there were a lot of pagans. The Igorots did not converted into Catholicism.
mm,
Comparing to other areas of the Philippines where they were conquered,
mm.
automatically it's either you kiss the cross or you
Mm.
get the sword.
Yeah.
No, that's how the Spanish termed it.
Yeah.
No? And then for them, their thrust and their mission was the three G's for the Spaniards. It
Yeah.
was God, gold, and glory. you know. So after getting all the gold, or if that area does not have the gold, they will present God. And if you don't believe in God, they will kill you. That's the reason you either kiss the cross, or you kill, or you will
Be killed.
be you will get killed by the sword, you know.
Yeah.
In some other areas of the southern Visayas,
Hmm.
the Spaniards cannot pronounce their family name. So what they did was everybody should register. No, if your barangay starts with R, your family name will start with R.
Hmm.
That never happened with the Cordillerans, because the Cordillerans were always ready to fight and always ready to die. And during that time, they were already being victorious. During that time, they
Hmm.
had no military experience,
Hmm.
yet they have defeated the conquerors, you know. But when the Americans came in, they introduced hospitals,
Hmm.
medicines, they introduced education, they introduced churches, and suddenly the Igorots coming from the mountains, no, there were missionaries back then, there were priests telling that, hey, you
What you're
are
doing is wrong.
sick, and
Yeah.
we have we have
A cure.
vaccines, we have medicines. Because back then, bro,
Yeah.
whenever someone gets sick,
Huh.
we don't have any medicines aside from the herbal medicines that there was.
Yeah.
And during those times, they believe that the gods, you know,
Cursed you.
the different gods, we have different gods before, you
Yeah.
know, we have different gods for different things.
Hmm.
We have kabunyan and everything, you know.
Hmm.
And we do the kanyaw. So
Yeah.
even, for example, you got malaria, Igorots will tell that, hey, you need to perform a kanyaw.
Sacrifice.
You
Yeah.
need to perform a ritual. Sacrifice sacrifice a pig, sacrifice an animal, you know. And that was our culture. And then suddenly the Americans came and say, hey, you might die doing your culture,
Hmm.
or come to us, get down,
Yeah.
and we'll give you the medicine and you live. And that's how they got the Cordillerans to actually have a change of heart. You know, that was when we were already penetrated.
Yeah.
You know,
The
and
funny part about that
time.
is,
Yeah.
although you made it look like it was the kindest gesture that the Americans would have said, in reality, it was never that kind enough.
Oh yeah.
The
Um.
Americans, yeah, they forced it to us. They forced it. They forced the
Yeah.
culture.
They forced it. They forced the
You
culture
just
at the
made it
same
sound
time.
a
You
bit
know.
kind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it might sound a bit kind, but
Yeah.
it was the reality that they they took advantage of the innocence, you
Mm.
know, of the Cordillerans. And some would say that Cordillerans are actually ignorant and stupid. But I do beg to disagree with that, because what those Americans think or know
Hmm.
might not be known by the Cordillerans, but there are also a lot of knowledge that the Cordillerans know and the Americans don't know,
Yeah.
you
True.
know.
True.
So it's kind of ironic when you say that Igorots are stupid because they during that time they were farmers.
Yeah.
Yes, sure enough, they were farmers. They were not educated, but you could see that they could create a masterpiece even without education. You know, the
They could make
Cordillerans from
stuff,
Mountain
woven stuff.
Province,
Yeah.
yeah, woven stuff. We create our own stuff,
Hmm.
from kitchen utensils, from weapons. We create our own during those time. Yet they were not educated. And
Hmm.
how can they actually tell that these Cordillerans or the Igorots are actually ignorant?
Hmm.
No, it's just a different perspective. Okay,
Hmm.
look at this. They say that Cordillerans are are ignorant, are uneducated, are stupid. Well, in
Mm.
fact, the Cordillerans created the Banawe rice terraces,
Yeah.
and they created that marvelous, perfectly engineered rice terraces without any equipments. They use bare hands and their tools.
Mm.
You know, and of all the eight wonders of the world, it is only Banawe rice terraces that was created for life, for a reason of life. It was created because during those times when, the Cordillerans or the Igorots live in hunting,
Mm.
and during those times, they can't hunt anymore because the animals are actually decreasing. The number of animals are actually decreasing.
And
The
the families
population
were,
was
yeah,
growing.
yeah.
Yeah, and they realized that we need to do something. So from that mountainous area which cannot be planted upon, they devise a strategy where they will create a terrace in order to use the land, to cultivate the land, and
Mm.
to provide for the family. So it was a reason for life. You know, Taj Mahal was created because of a memoir of someone who died, of the
Mm.
wife,
Mm.
right? Oh, the when in Rome during that time that there were chaos, in order for them to create entertainment for the people,
They built the
then
Colosseum.
they built the Colosseum and created a match between 100 gladiators to kill each other.
Uh,
You know, the Great Wall of China was created to prevent outsiders from coming in order to have a leverage for them to kill their enemies prior for the enemies to entering their territory. All of the wonders of the world was created for death. The pyramid was created as a burial ground.
yeah.
Only the rice terraces was created for life. And yet they say that we are stupid. Where's the logic in
Hey,
that, And
makes sense.
we don't have any tools. We don't have any equipments. There were no tractors. There were no, you know, they created that from bare hands, and this happened 2,000, 3,000 years ago.
Mm.
Imagine that. And you don't have any known leader. You don't know, there's no singular person
Yeah.
that was identified that, hey, he is the leader of
Yeah.
the rice terraces. You know, and it's an irony
Yeah. It,
how they see us. Yeah, go.
but yeah, that's an interesting perspective, and I love the education here because I've missed out a lot. Yeah, so I missed out on that life experience, uh, paganism and all that stuff. I mean, uh, it to me that experience of it is somewhat something that I missed because of being away. And even when I was young, I kind of missed those kanyaos because that was if I were to reflect back and take my body back into the age when I was less than 5 years old, I remember, the parties, the excessive parties were kanyao, the dancing, the
Mm-hmm.
bonfire.
Yeah, yeah.
Those were the life. That was the life. I mean, prior to the technology, that life was really fun. It was just sad that when society evolved and all the houses started to become more paranoid. They wanted to protect each other,
Mm-hmm.
and it's become more than the one thing I love about Igorot culture, not just the Kanyao, is that there's moments, these tiny fine moments where you get to know who you don't know, and you get to build a relationship with them, and you get to understand certain personalities. Although, yeah, it's hard, it's stressful, especially for the host, and
Yeah.
it's a journey, and it's one of the journeys that I really love about this life prior to Indian life is very is very wide. I think it deserves its own it deserves its own podcast
Mm-hmm.
episode or series. But yeah, uh, that's the life here. Igorot is saying community. The life is very powerful, and yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I never thought about it that way since you mentioned it. It's really interesting. So many things I love
The
to share,
the,
but yeah.
the culture of the Cordillera, brother,
Mm,
is more about the community rather than a singular person. That's the reason that we can never find a singular leader, no, from all of those history, because it's always about the community. The community will speak, no, the leaders will listen. It's always a communal decision.
mm,
And whenever the elders will speak out, whenever the elders decide, the whole community listens, the whole community obeys.
mm,
Sometimes it's a kind of double-edged sword,
mm,
especially right now,
mm,
because right now the elders think differently on how us the millennials will think, or how we would actually decide on things, on matters,
mm.
like my cousin just died, I just buried him this 26th, you know he
Mm.
was the closest to me, and we decided that we have a burial which was already Christian burial,
Mm.
you know and you know elders would always ask why why do that, why not butcher a pig, why not do a kanya, why not do this, why not do that,
It's dying.
so sometimes there's a
Yeah.
conflict right now.
Yeah.
Yes, the culture is now having uh having the culture is the
I
culture right now is having a lot of conflict, maybe because of ideology, because of technology, because of
generation.
innovation that changes generation, and of course financial. We need to accept the truth that before, nobody was actually selling their pigs,
So it was
because
trade,
before,
barter.
yeah, you trade, you barter. If you need a pig, you just borrow a pig from your neighbor,
Mm.
and you just return it after you have grown another one,
Yeah.
you know but right now, the commerce is different,
Yeah.
business is different. You pay everything in money. you know
Mm.
Back then, you could actually have a loan just by word of mouth, just by face value. Right now, you need a lot of credentials, a
Yeah.
lot of qualifications in order for the bank to release just a meager amount of 50,000.
Not even
During
50 is
those times, you
mil.
could,
If especially
yeah,
if your household is that big, it's even more than a million. It's like you spent like your entire lotto and an entire thing.
yeah. But, that right now, life is so difficult because if, like, for example, you just need 50,000
Mm.
right now,
Mm.
and you go to a bank, before the bank would provide you that 50,000, there are a lot of requirements and qualifications you need to submit.
Yeah.
Back then, if you need 50,000 or even 100,000, you just go to three neighbors and you just ask, "Can I please borrow money?"
Mm.
That's how simple life was. You know, that's how simple life was before.
It's
So you could
interesting.
see, um, you've mentioned a while ago that you love the culture of the Cordillerans, the Igorots, because whenever you go to a party, you go to a kanya, you get to know people, even if you don't know them, they are so friendly to you, you know,
Mm.
because the Cordillerans, the Cordillerans are friendly in nature. It is the character of the Cordillerans that everybody should eat. So if you're familiar with the kanya, we also
Mm.
have what we call the watwat.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the
That one I
watwat
know.
is for the listeners out there, um for those who are not Cordillerans, the what is it's like
Mm.
your takeout meat. And during the olden times, during those golden times, they would give you a plastic. It's like a kilo or 2 kilos of meat that you will bring home, and that's for free. You know,
Mm.
and because during that time, life was simple. You don't need invitations during that time.
Mm.
As long as you can see the smoke,
Mm. You're
you're
invited.
invited. That's why they say there's a saying here in the Cordilleras that when there's smoke, there's fire, and when there's fire, there's meat.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you can see the smoke, you're invited. That's how it is back then. But as I've mentioned, life transformed into something complicated.
True.
Financial, innovation, even the ideology trans. You know, right now nobody practices mummification anymore. The Ibaloys were the original, headhunters of the Cordillerans. No, nobody practices this anymore. Nobody practices tribal wars. Here, I'm
Mm.
talking about the Ibaloy culture. Okay,
Yeah.
because in some other Cordilleran culture, tribal war is still being practiced.
Yeah.
But in the Ibaloy culture, we don't practice tribal war anymore.
Mm.
We get to court. These are the changes that it
Society.
kind of positive changes. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's positive, but on some point there are some negative connotations also
Yeah.
of those changes. You know, and yeah, I do believe that there are some culture that should be retained. There are some tradition that should be retained, and there are some traditions that lowlanders will never understand. You know,
Mm.
what's hurt, what's painful for us, the Cordillerans, is that even in the books right now of the Department of Education, in their books they say that an Igorot is someone who has curly hair and who's actually having a
I
black
heard that.
skin.
I heard that story.
They're pertaining to Aitas. Well, with all due respect to the Aitas, they're the original aborigines of the Philippines, no? The Filipinos.
I
I
heard
have
that
high
story.
respects to a lot of ethnicity, no?
Huh.
But what I'm saying is the Cordillerans are not Aitas. They think they a lot. Imagine teaching kids that Igorots look like Aitas. And when you come here to the Cordillerans, you will be amazed that the Cordillerans are actually fair skinned. And some are even having skin as white as Koreans.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and this is the education system that we have. That's why people from the lowlanders would come to Baguio, come to the Cordillera, and they would say, I would like to see an Igorot, you know. And i- I'm an Igorot. I'm in Manila.
Hmm.
They're already looking at me, and they would tell me, no, I would like to see a real Igorot. So what the hell am I? I'm a fake Igorot. I was born and raised in the Cordillerans. My parents are Cordillerans. I'm a pure-blooded Igorot, you know. And I think this is what we need to share to our brothers and sisters in the lowlands,
Mm.
that the Cordillerans look so much similar like them.
Mm.
Gone were the days that the Cordillerans wear their bahag going to Session Road. Like you've mentioned, back then we only know pinikpikan, but right now we already have fried chicken.
Mm.
Baguio City was converted into Jolly Town
Yeah.
because when you walk along Session Road, how many Jollibee franchise are there? You know, it's not
Actually
Baguio
counting it.
anymore.
The irony is I'm counting 1, 2,
Yeah.
3.
Oh, really?
3. 3 that I know from
It's
session. Plus
uh
assumption, that's 4.
no, 4, the
Near
old
book
session
ends.
in the
5. That's
yeah,
5.
5. I think there's 6.
6 is
So very
SM.
lower.
SM. Ah,
Yeah,
yeah, lower
you
in
see.
thing,
So
magsaysay.
it's
7.
not it's not already it's not already Session Road. It's already Jolly Town. You know, imagine how long is that street? It's like around um 500, 600 meters, and you have like around 7 Jollibee stores.
Wow.
Wow, diba? So you know these misconceptions of the Cordillerans needs to change.
Hmm.
There are misconceptions that Igorots have tails because they thought the Bahag is a tail. They thought that Igorots are short.
Yeah.
I'm 5'7" for Christ's sake. My brother is 5'8". You know, so this misconceptions, and the misconception that an Igorot is actually ignorant, stupid, uneducated. Maybe we just have different connotation
Perspectives.
of what education is.
Yeah.
We have a different perspective of what education is. You know, a lot of them are educated but not learned.
Hmm.
A lot of them might have the master's degree, but they are not still learned. Our education in the Cordillera starts when we are young. It
Hmm.
does not start the moment we enter school. It's not end after 5, after classroom. Our education continues,
Yeah.
you know. So we are educated with without school and within the school.
Hmm.
No, it's just so that we are educated in a different aspect, in a different focus, because Cordillerans are agriculture people.
Hmm.
We are agriculturists. So it has been a long tradition that when you are a Cordilleran, automatically you become a farmer.
Hmm.
You know, we are an agrarian society.
Hmm.
That's who the Cordillerans are. You
Hmm.
know, only now during the 21st century that things change, because suddenly there are a lot who are having more dreams, bigger dreams. But honestly speaking, the majority of the Cordillerans have only like three choices.
Hmm.
Mostly, I'm not saying all, but mostly,
Hmm.
it's either they will enter being um, a man in uniform,
Hmm.
policeman, firefighter, soldier,
Hmm.
or they would be a teacher or an engineer. That's the three professions, the highest professions in the Cordilleras. You know, and of course, if you don't fall under those three,
Hmm.
you now become a driver. You now become a farmer. And all those other jobs. You know? So this is how we were trained. This is how we were brought up. This is how we were educated.
Hmm.
Because that's how the Cordillerans feel about men in uniform, that they are highly respected, that they should be people who are righteous. You know, unfortunately, not everybody in the Philippines feel the same way about it. No. And as I've mentioned, we have a different perspective on a lot of things.
Hmm.
No, success. When we talk about success, a lot of people, no, would relate success to material things, your house, money, your cars, jewelries. That's how they would measure success. So when you can see an Igorot, suddenly somebody would judge them that, hey, that person is so poor, that person is not successful.
Hmm.
When in fact, we have a different connotation of success. You know, my grandmother, Mama Rosa, mentioned to me what success is. And it was, I was, yeah, this, my God, uh, this segment is really emotional right now. I'm being so emotional, but now my grandmother mentioned to me that
Mm,
success is not what you have. Success is who you are. You know,
mm,
during that time, I don't understand it. Not no,
mm,
success is what you have because this is how society built and defined success.
yeah.
You know, I see my classmates having new clothes every start of the classes, new bags, new shoes. They were having the most expensive watches. They were
Mm,
having the best phones, and I I thought that was success. But success is not really on material things. Success means a lot of things to different people. And apparently, for the Cordillerans, success is not what you have.
mm,
It's who you are. Success is how high you bounce, how high you get up when you hit rock bottom, and that's
mm,
success. You know, failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. This
mm,
these are the beliefs, these are the mentality, and this is how Cordillerans think. And we can't really force other people or other culture to really understand us, you know, because there would always be people who will never understand our culture, you know. And it's so funny, just a while back I was in a meeting with um I was in an international meeting
mm,
with people from Malaysia, Hong Kong, Denmark, one from Africa, Quito, Ecuador. And we were also talking about diversity in culture.
mm,
That if only we would embrace diversity in culture, you know, we would have a stronger community, a stronger society. And like you've mentioned, why is it the reason that in the Cordillerans, even if they don't know you, they are so friendly with you? Because they love diversity. They
mm,
respect diversity. You know, here in the Cordillerans, respect is so high that you could actually borrow money without any collateral. You enter into contracts without any paper. It's just word of mouth.
mm,
But once you broke your promise, you will be ousted by the society or by the tribe.
yeah.
The tribe will know who you are. And it's so hard to get back into the tribe once you have done something wrong.
Mm,
You know. So there you go. That's the culture. It's culture. Sometimes there are pros, there are cons. But I do believe that what we need to do right now is just be human, like what Brycan is always pushing for us to do. Just
mm,
be human and be respectful of the difference. We just embrace diversity and we will be having a better society instead of judging other ethnicity, instead of telling what's good, what's best for them. How can you know what's best for them when you don't live there? How can you know what's best for them when you're just a tourist here, right?
mm,
So there, you know, different perspectives, different thoughts, but I think that's my take on culture. That's my take on diversity. It's just a matter of respect, being human, you know.
Interesting.
What do
I've
you think,
always
Rajiv?
I've always wanted to have this conversation with you. Actually, in my head, I've wanted to have a cultural conversation first, but I never knew that we'd extend. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, this has
yeah.
actually been the second,
Sorry it
I
took
think,
us so
second or third.
long.
Yeah, second or third conversation that got me emotional because, yeah. um, I have a feeling that we are gonna cut short on the conversation. Perhaps
Yeah.
I hope I'd get you back on the Rajiv show. Let's talk about business venture, the business side of it, and
Oh yeah.
I hope you'd come back again. I'd love to have you back in the Rajiv show. But before we wrap
Yes,
up,
anytime, brother.
before we wrap this entire conversation, of course, my listeners would love to connect with you via social media. How do they find you on social media, pal?
They could find me through my Facebook account. It's Nic Satur Jr. NICSATURJR. Or they could just Google me, Um, and they could find my LinkedIn. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, I want to say thank you to my guest, Nic Satur, fellow Ibaloy, fellow Cordilleran, and I've learned a lot of perspective, reflections. It's very
Yeah.
informal, this conversation. I hope my listeners have picked up a thing or two also in this conversation. Uh, thank you so much, pal, for joining me in this conversation again.
As a pleasure being here, Rajiv, anytime. I had fun. Thank you to all listeners. You know.
And with that in mind, folks, cheers. I will see you in the next episode.